In the heart of the lush and verdant kingdom of Ntimbe, there reigned a beloved king named Chidi. He was known far and wide for his unwavering commitment to peace. Under his rule, Ntimbe flourished in prosperity and harmony, a beacon of tranquility in a world often torn by strife. King Chidi's reign was marked by his refusal to engage in wars, his wisdom in resolving conflicts, and his belief that true strength lay in unity and understanding. One day, while visiting the neighboring village of Okoroma, King Chidi met Adanne, a woman of striking beauty and gentle spirit. Adanne was known in her village for her compassion and intelligence, and it did not take long for King Chidi to fall deeply in love with her. Adanne too saw in Chidi a partner who shared her values of kindness and peace. Their union was celebrated with great joy, not only in Ntimbe, but also in Okoroma, symbolizing the bond between their two communities. With Adanne by his side, King Chidi's reign was even more enlightened. The queen's grace and wisdom complemented the king's benevolent nature, and together they guided their people with compassion. Their palace became a place of learning and culture, where scholars and artisans from far and wide gathered to share their knowledge and crafts. In time, Adanne became pregnant, and the kingdom rejoiced at the news of an heir. The palace buzzed with preparations for the arrival of the royal child, a symbol of the bright future that lay ahead for Ntimbe. However, not everyone in the kingdom shared in the joy. A faction within Ntimbe, who saw King Chidi's peaceful ways as a sign of weakness, grew restless. They believed that the kingdom needed a stronger, more militant leader to ensure its dominance, and feared that the king's pacifism would lead to their downfall. On the night Adanne went into labor, the palace of Ntimbe was a place of joy and anticipation as Queen Adanne gave birth to a beautiful baby princess. However, the joyous occasion was marred by a sudden and brutal attack by the faction that opposed King Chidi's peaceful rule. As the usurpers broke into the palace, King Chidi fought with all his might to protect his wife and child, but was overwhelmed and slain. Adanne, cradling her newborn daughter, knew her time was short. With tears streaming down her face, Adanne kissed her baby girl one last time, whispering words of love and hope. She then placed the child in the arms of her most loyal palace guard, a brave and devoted woman named Onyinye. "Onyinye," the queen said with a trembling voice, "take my daughter far away from here. Raise her in a place where no one knows who she is. Keep her safe. This bangle," she continued, slipping a gold and jewel-encrusted bangle off her wrist and handing it to Onyinye, "signifies her royal heritage. When the time is right, tell her who she is and where she comes from." Onyinye, her eyes filled with tears and determination, nodded. She swore an oath to protect the princess with her life. As the sounds of the approaching attackers grew louder, Onyinye wrapped the baby tightly in a blanket, concealed the bangle, and fled the palace. She moved swiftly and silently through the night, her heart heavy with grief but resolute in her mission. Onyinye journeyed for many days, crossing rivers and dense forests until she reached a distant village where no one knew her or the child she carried. There she named the young Odinaka, which means everything is in God's hands, a name that signified the hope and faith she held for the child's future. Onyinye raised Odinaka as her own daughter, keeping her true identity a secret. In the secluded environment of their new home, she trained Odinaka in the ways of a warrior, teaching her the art of combat, strategy, and survival. Odinaka grew up in isolation, her days filled with rigorous training under the watchful eye of Onyinye. From a young age, she learned to wield a sword, master archery, and develop strategies of combat. She became a fierce and capable warrior, her skills honed to perfection. Despite her intense training, Odinaka couldn't help but notice the simple joys she seemed to be missing. One day, while climbing a tree to scout the surrounding area, she spotted a group of young maidens in an open field. They were laughing and dancing, their movements graceful and free. Odinaka watched them with a mixture of longing and curiosity, her heart aching to join in their carefree revelry. This scene repeated itself several times, and each time the yearning within Odinaka grew stronger. She couldn't understand why she was kept away from other people her age, why she was constantly subjected to such demanding training. Finally, one evening, after Onyinye returned from gathering supplies, Odinaka decided to voice her thoughts. "Mother, Odinaka began hesitantly. Why can't I join the other maidens? Why must I spend my days training instead of dancing and playing like them? Onyinye paused, her face showing a mixture of sorrow and resolve. She had known this day would come, the day she would have to reveal the truth to Odinaka. She took a deep breath and sat down, motioning for Odinaka to sit beside her. "It's time you knew the truth," Onyinye said softly. "I have raised you as my own, but I am not your real mother." Odinaka's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" Onyinye gently took Odinaka's hands in hers and began to recount the story she had kept hidden for so long. She told her of King Chidi and Queen Adanne, the beloved rulers of Ntimbe who stood for peace and wisdom. She described the night of their murder, how the palace was attacked by a faction that saw the king's peaceful ways as weakness. She told her of the queen's final moments, the desperate plea to protect her child, and the royal bangle that signified Odinaka's true heritage. "You are Princess Odinaka of Ntimbe," Onyinye said, her voice filled with emotion. "Your parents were killed in cold blood, and I was entrusted with your safety. I brought you here to keep you hidden from those who would harm you, and I trained you so that you could one day reclaim your rightful place and fulfill your parents' dream of a peaceful kingdom." Odinaka sat in stunned silence, absorbing the weight of Onyinye's words. She felt a rush of emotions: sorrow for the parents she never knew, anger at the injustice done to them, and a newfound sense of purpose. "But why have I never known this until now?" Odinaka asked, her voice trembling. "I wanted to protect you," Onyinye replied. "You needed to be strong, to be ready for the challenges you will face. Your training was necessary to prepare you for the path that lies ahead." Odinaka looked at the bangle on her wrist, the symbol of her royal blood. She felt a surge of determination. "I understand now," she said, her voice steady. "I will honor my parents' memory. I will reclaim what is rightfully mine and bring peace back to Ntimbe." Onyinye nodded, pride and sadness mingling in her eyes. "You are ready, Odinaka, but remember, you do not have to face this alone. There are those who remain loyal to your family, and they will stand by your side when the time comes." In the days that followed, Odinaka continued her training with renewed vigor. But she also allowed herself moments of joy, moments where she danced alone in the open field, imagining the day when she could join the maidens she had watched from afar. She was no longer just a warrior, she was a princess with a destiny to fulfill. When the time was right, Odinaka and Onyinye set out on their journey back to Ntimbe. Upon her return to Ntimbe, Odinaka found a land weary of tyranny and ripe for change. The usurper's harsh rule had left the people longing for the days of King Chidi and Queen Adanne's peaceful and just reign. News of Odinaka's return spread like wildfire, igniting hope in the hearts of the citizens. Odinaka, with Onyinye by her side, began to rally followers. She moved through villages and towns, sharing her story and her vision for a peaceful future. Her strength, courage, and the undeniable aura of royalty she carried inspired many to join her cause. The loyalists who had secretly supported her family's ideals for years came forward, offering their resources and skills to the young princess. With a growing army of dedicated supporters, Odinaka planned her strategy carefully. She knew that reclaiming the throne would require not only strength in battle, but also wisdom in leadership. She gathered her forces, training them rigorously and preparing them for the decisive moment. The battle to dethrone the usurper was fierce and grueling. Odinaka fought valiantly at the front lines, her prowess in combat and her unwavering determination galvanizing her troops. Onyinye, ever her protector and mentor, fought by her side, their bond unbreakable. After several days of intense fighting, they breached the palace walls. The final confrontation took place in the throne room, where Odinaka faced the usurper who had stolen her birthright and murdered her parents. With a fierce and righteous anger, Odinaka confronted the usurper, their clash echoing through the halls that had once known only peace. In the end, it was Odinaka's strength and the justice of her cause that prevailed. The usurper was defeated, and the people of Ntimbe rejoiced as Odinaka reclaimed her rightful place on the throne. Once the battle was won, Odinaka turned her attention to rebuilding her kingdom. She knew that true victory lay not in conquest, but in restoring the peace and prosperity her parents had envisioned. Her first act as queen was to send envoys to the neighboring kingdoms with messages of peace and reconciliation. She reaffirmed the treaties her father had brokered, extending a hand of friendship to old allies and new ones alike. Kingdoms that had once been skeptical of Ntimbe's commitment to peace were moved by Odinaka's genuine efforts to restore harmony. Her willingness to forgive and rebuild bridges fostered a new era of cooperation and mutual respect in the region.